Hello, and welcome to Cemetery Stories, Capital Connections Edition, Season 3. I'm your host, Capital Eric, and I'm a tour guide here at Sacramento Historic City Cemetery, as well as the California State Capitol Museum, a unit of California State Parks, just up the road. And today I'd like to tell you about one of our permanent residents here at the cemetery, someone who is connected in life or in death with the state capitol or federal or local government. Now, you caught me right in the middle of my reading time. My latest volume from the State Library, recommended by the state librarian himself, is all about symbols you might see in a cemetery. Did you know a closed book on a tombstone might symbolize the end of life? Books might also symbolize the deceased's occupation in life, or simply a love of books or a good education. Would you like to see what's next? Read on, Macduff. That's a good one. Ladies and gentlemen, today's episode of Cemetery Stories Capital Connections is unique. For today, I will not be telling the story. Today, you will be hearing this story straight from the mouth of the woman who lived it. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my special guest, Luella Buckminster Johnston.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And hello, my fellow Sacramentans and my fellow voters. I am Luella Johnston, and I'm a resident here at the Sacramento's Historic City Cemetery. During my lifetime, I was a proud Sacramento suffragette, a local businesswoman, and the first female city council member. Today I'll share with you the story of my struggle for equal voting rights and an equal voice in our city government. So let's start in 1911. Oh, what a year. Now in 1911, I was a widow living here in Sacramento, raising my 5 wonderful children, and running our family printing business that I took over after my husband passed away. I could not accept that I could manage our large household, run a profitable local business all on my own. But I could not vote. Well, voting is the most basic democratic right. My fellow suffragettes and I, we fought hard for equal voting rights. Those who would have kept us women oppressed, how they mocked and they vilified us. Sometimes they said women lacked the mental capacity to vote. Other times they said there was no point to give us women the vote because we would just vote how our husbands told us to. We faced all the opposition with grit, and we kept fighting for voting equality. At the California statewide election of 1911, an election in which only men could vote, we women won our right to vote. 50.7% of the men voted in favor of women's suffrage. A scant 3,587 votes made the difference. That's an average of 1 vote for each voting precinct in the state. Don't tell me every vote doesn't count. Of course, that was just us California women. Women in many other states had to wait for their voting rights, some as late as 1920, with the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the federal Constitution. While the victory in California elections in 1911 was progress, it wasn't enough for me. I wanted to serve Sacramento as an elected citywide official, and that's why in 1912, in the very first election in which I could vote, my name was on that ballot. I ran as a progressive candidate for the Sacramento City Council. I campaigned that I would stand up to those big corporations like the Southern Pacific Railroad, and that I understood the real issues facing local business leaders and homemakers, like myself. At that 1912 election, for the first time, the men and women of Sacramento voted side by side. And they voted for me. I was the first woman elected to citywide office, not only in the history of Sacramento, but in all of California. During my term in office, I proudly led many positive, progressive reforms for Sacramento, including adding a practical component to Sacramento's public education, modernizing our city's vital levees and utilities, and you can bet I fought cronyism in City Hall, too. After my term, I continued in public service throughout my lifetime. I died in 1958 at the age of 97, and I'm buried right here in the historic city cemetery. You should come visit me sometime. But if you want to remember me, you don't only have to visit me here, because in March of 2018, the Sacramento City Council unanimously voted to rename the hearing room in Sacramento's historic City Hall, that's the building across the street from Cesar Chavez Park, as the Luella Johnston Hearing Room. So when it's safe, you can visit the hearing room that bears my name in the same City Hall where I served as Sacramento's first City Council member over 100 years ago. Now, Sacramento, I want to talk for just a moment about your safety and our beloved hometown. Now, I've lived through the Civil War, the 1918 pandemic, 2 world wars, the Great Depression, and lots of other challenging times that face Sacramento and our nation. So I know firsthand that Sacramento will come through these challenging times stronger and with a better sense of the unity within our community, because we always have and we always will, Sacramento. So stay safe. Come visit us at the historic city cemetery, and remember to vote.
Well, that closes the book on another chapter of Cemetery Stories, Capital Connections Edition, Volume 3. I'm your host, Capital Eric, and it's been my pleasure telling you a little bit about City Cemetery as well as the state capitol. Now, unfortunately, during the pandemic, the California State Capitol Museum, a unit of California State Parks, is closed to the public. City Cemetery remains open for a solitary stroll or some quiet contemplation. Remember, keep up the social distancing, wash your hands, because it is better to be 6 feet apart than 6 feet under. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Goodbye.